Okay, we're wrapping up today with two panels. First one's a mini one, and then the second one will feature Paul McIntyre grilling people in his usual fashion. But first up, absolutely delighted to have Juliette Stead, who's the head of JPAC for Magnite, and her guests. Give her a massive welcome as she takes the stage.
Thank you. Thanks for the call out.
Yeah.
How many chairs do we need? Hi, everybody. Great to see so many familiar faces here today. And we will get straight into it. Essentially, everybody in this room is very, very familiar with what's going on at the moment, locally and globally from a financial perspective. The climate is not as healthy and strong as we would like it to be in many ways, and we're seeing that impact on our industry in a variety of ways that we're obviously looking to tackle very constructively. So from a media and marketing perspective, obviously, we know that this financial uncertainty can lead to budgets being cut. We can see that spend can decrease across both branding and performance. And we know that that can happen even though brands recognise the value of having that continued exposure within market. So what we're wanting to look at specifically within this panel today is essentially we've got bright spots. You know, BVOD, for example, and also the whole total TV conversation is a very optimistic and positive conversation. And we're seeing some really great stories already through the research and through Nicola's presentation just now around total TV and BVOD. So essentially, we've got the current financial climate that we're very, very familiar with. We've got everything that's going on at the moment in BVOD and total TV, and really keen to dig into what that means now in 2023, where brands have the opportunity to harness the power of television and also have technology at their fingertips so that they can leverage data and make very informed buying decision. So essentially, what does that mean when it all comes together? As Justin just mentioned, I head up Magnite across the APAC region, and I have the privilege of working with brands and publishers across many, many markets. Within Australia and New Zealand, I work with all of the broadcasters and streaming providers. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Nick Young from Nine. We've got Jason here from MIQ, and of course Danny from Dentsu. So thank you very much all for joining us, and particularly Nick, because it was actually going to be Jordan on our panel, and Jordan got very sick, so Nick has taken the reins. So thank you for that, Nick.
That's right, just like all his jollies.
Yeah, exactly. So guys, first off, we all know that TV is very powerful. It's a great driver of brand effectiveness and messaging. Do we genuinely consider that BVOD is TV, or is it different? Nick, I'm going to go to you first on this one.
Thank you for that. So I've had loads of time to prepare. Look, 100%. The way that we've structured the Nine business is in total TV, total publishing, and total audio. And the reason that we've done that is very reflective of how advertisers want to trade with us going forward, and obviously very reflective of how our consumers and audiences consume our brands. And I think from our perspective, they are absolutely intertwined, and you can't have one without the other. And it's also the benefit of it. If we look at what we're doing from a Nine perspective on the commercial side, where, from a BVOD perspective, adopting TV-esque ad units, without giving the game away, simply first and lasting break, high impact units around those areas. In sport and the AO, the solus break, or in highly engaged areas that TV or linear TV does so well. We've brought those to our BVOD platform. But that's not a zero-sum game. It's also about expanding out the best things of digital within our platform as well. So yes, we've invested in TV-esque models and those high impact units, but also invested heavily in interactive ads, dynamic ads, and a continued investment in our data targeting and segmentation. So it's taking the best of traditional and proven TV medium and bringing in and digitizing the best of the digital assets as well. And it's that combination of both that's been truly effective for our clients.
Superb. Jason, anything to add to that, or do you agree entirely with everything Nick just said?
Look, I do, but it's also just a great consumer proposition, isn't it? With the evolution of technology added, I think, being able to have all that great programming, but on your timetable, the ability to view it cross-platform, pause it, fast forward it, all those other things, searchable capabilities that just brings TV into the new era, which I think is brilliant.
Beautiful. Good stuff. Danny, Dentsu, what's your view?
I was going to say yes and no.
Okay.
In terms of if you've got the live streaming element, that's definitely the same as TV, especially if it's in the living room on that big screen. But now I also think that with us having catch-up, it's potentially not the same anymore as people thinking about on-peak and off-peak of when they're thinking from an advertising perspective, and then also as consumers watching. They're now able to binge what they're after, and that was the mention of fast tracks earlier as well, fast channels. And then also in terms of the devices now, so I think it's a very different experience as a consumer, or my mindset as well, if I'm watching live streaming on my mobile on the tram, Melbourne-based, so I can say train here if you'd prefer. It's a very different experience, and the advertising I think would be very different with my engagement level to if it was in the living room and watching it live in that.
Superb. Okay, good stuff. We already on the research that we've been looking at today, there was one particular chart that showed TV, which included BVOD as well as linear television, and of course that goes back to the terminology around total TV, and essentially this is people watching TV irrespective of the device. What is stopping us, Jason? What's stopping us from genuinely achieving that total TV concept in terms of the way that we're trading as media marketing professionals?
Well, look, we're well on the way, aren't we? In
Yep.
terms of the investments that are going in from all the broadcasters into great products in the BVOD services. You're also seeing, some of the charts this morning, the viewership that sits on YouTube, on Netflix, and the streaming services. So, as a consumer, they're already in that world of consuming total TV on their schedule, wherever they want to do it, across whatever platform. And so you're seeing, quite rightly, dollars following that, because the audiences are fragmenting and making their own decisions. So I think the first comment is, I think we're well on the way. I think what's holding us up is, there's probably some weakness around the definitions of what is total TV, hence your question, I assume. From an MOQ perspective, we'll follow the audience on that, on what is a view of total TV. And so with video and that format at the centre of that, we're quite happy to look at total TV across linear, BVOD, CTV, YouTube, whatever it might be.
So you would actually include YouTube in the total TV concept, would you?
You bet.
Because obviously going back to the chart that we were just looking at, sorry, this is new to me as well, just seeing that research this morning and seeing that there was such a significant difference in terms of performance between YouTube versus TV. So the conversion and the awareness aspect of TV was so much higher than YouTube.
Yep.
So wouldn't there be a danger of combining YouTube with TV and therefore diluting the effectiveness of total TV?
I don't think there's a danger if you're planning in a way that I don't think there's anyone out there going, well, YouTube's the same as TV.
Right.
But sitting in a total TV framework, it absolutely has a role.
They are. Sorry, he's looking right at me as well.
Fair,
I can
fair,
see him
fair.
over there going. And I've got Jordan going, don't say.
But well, look at the numbers, guys. So, look at the rates that you all pay. You're all buying these things. It plays out in rate. No one thinks they're the same. And so let's just take that off the table.
Yep.
But in a world where you're looking at incremental reach, sometimes frequency gains, sometimes combining all that great investment in TV, which does perform hugely well, but combining that with other formats similar in terms of its delivery, site seller count, site and movement and
Yep.
sound, then the incremental reach plays that can help to get clients to a performance outcome. I don't see what the
So
downside
part
of
of
that
the
is.
mix, but clear differentiation. Okay,
totally.
good stuff. Thank you. And Danny, we've been talking about recently. We've been discussing, what's going on from a financial perspective and so on, and economic headwinds. How are you seeing that play out when it comes to BVOD specific spends? Are we seeing caution, resistance, or is everyone getting stuck in?
I think everyone's getting stuck in. I think from looking at the programmatic lens, I guess, of the spend that we're seeing there from a channel point, BVOD definitely isn't declining. If anything, BVOD is potentially starting to absorb some of the budgets from the other digital channels, if you will, the likes of high impact display, those sort of formats. And I think it's because when you start comparing the value of the media cost of a high impact format to what you're potentially paying for a BVOD CPM, they're getting pretty close to each other. Sometimes I would actually say high impact is a lot more expensive than BVOD. So you're able to reach a user with a large format in the living room at a cost that could be half the price of what it would be on a mobile device, which is crazy. But then I think we're also seeing that we've especially seen with a lot of global clients who are starting to pull back a bit from their offline budgets at the moment, that they're pulling some of the offline, but they've already got their digital and their programmatic budgets where they're able to include that BVOD element, so they're able to still reach people on that screen. It's obviously not going to be the same for every client or every audience, because we don't expect to be able to reach every demo through the BVOD type of viewing, I guess, compared to the people that are still going to go through the linear avenue. But it's definitely giving you that opportunity to be able to play around with your budgets and be able to drive more efficiencies out of the BVOD side of things.
Okay, good stuff. Jason, are you seeing anything similar across MIQ?
In terms of the distribution?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And as I said, as I was saying before, in terms of defining or whatever the goals and outcomes that a campaign is after, then being able to increasingly look at an entire ecosystem, as I said, follow where the audience is, then it just makes sense, and you're generally driving better outcomes through the process. Yeah.
Beautiful. So Nick, does this align with what you're seeing over at Nine? Are you seeing that brands are being cautious around BVOD or leaning in?
Definitely leaning in. I think, so for those who don't know, I've sort of went away and then I've come back to Nine. And, whenever you start a new job again, you go around and you meet your clients and stuff. So anecdotally, after the last sort of 6 weeks of meeting sort of senior CMOs, yes, there's a cautiousness just more generally around advertising, obviously, this year. But I think the really interesting side of it that I'm experiencing is their change of their view of BVOD in particular. Where before, and I will quote one client, I won't tell you who it was, said, yeah, look, I didn't really focus on it when it was 500 grand on my plan. But now it's 5 million. I want to know where it's going, what it's doing, what it's delivering. So the levels of accountability that's coming through in BVOD are far higher than they've ever been. And certainly from a client perspective, universally of the conversations that I've had over the last 6 weeks have been one around transparency and understanding, I understand where my TV ad goes, my linear TV. I need to understand where my BVOD ad is going. Now, that's not in any way, shape or form, are they questioning programmatic or programmatic challenges? We are seeing a significant rise just recently in what we call handheld or IO-based advertising. But certainly there's a level of accountability that BVOD or scrutiny that BVOD is getting that perhaps wasn't there 12 to 18 months ago.
Okay, interesting. Good stuff. And Jason, I'd like to hear from you more around how you're seeing brands use data in order to maximise budgets and to really ensure that that money is being well spent and being most effectively driven.
There's probably 3 ways in terms of advanced media planning for their TV. We're seeing clients use data to share shift from linear into BVOD, some cases into CTV as well. And recently you're seeing an uptick on looking for, frequency gains, certainly through those later 2 categories as well. The second in, I guess, more of a TV targeting approach, supplementing their TARP and demographic data with other sources where they can beef out a plan with sort of niche or more strategic audiences that are heading towards a certain performance outcome. And then the third one would be, trying to get a total TV picture where they're trying to stitch together linear TV and OTT. I'm sure that'll be talked about a lot today with recent announcements. But those are the 3 main ones, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And Danny, from a data perspective, how are you guys driving addressable outcomes through data, whether that's data? So obviously Nick mentioned that Nine have got a really strong addressable strategy with first-party data and so on. Is that an integral part of what you're working with these days?
Yeah, I'm finding that traditionally, I guess we didn't have as much supply available and the audiences weren't necessarily there, so it was probably a lot more run-of-network deals and potentially leveraging the DSP data segments in there. But now we've got all of the broadcast partners having their addressable segments with their first-party data, and clients are more and more interested in starting to leverage that, and it's giving the ability to target more specifically and be able to leverage those logged-in users, which is something that you're not going to be able to access from that linear point. So again, it's helping you drive that dollar further.
And what's your recommendation then when you're working with brands around addressability? Because obviously, in my mind, there's a time and place for addressability, but you don't want to go too far down that direction because you could potentially really limit your outcomes.
Yeah, I think it's definitely always still remembering that it is part of that total TV piece. So it is that one-to-many medium in there. So if you are looking at, 5 people on the couch at home, using that addressable segment, it's potentially going to only align to one person in that room as well, right? So you can't take it as strictly as you probably would from a digital one-to-one targeting perspective. So I think you do have to remember that, and that you can still reach those broad demographics, and especially if you're looking at the content, like with the tent poles, you know what audience they're going to reach. So if you're buying across that tent pole, you don't need to be layering that extra data on top. You've already got that targeting piece. Yeah. So it's about working out who you're targeting and why you're targeting them and what you're trying to achieve through that buy.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, so obviously not only have Nine had a very strong data strategy, but also programmatic is a very integral part of what you do. We work together very, very closely. How do you see that really adding value to what you guys are doing within this space in order to give brands more access to an opportunity to communicate with such a broad audience?
I think the big thing about Total TV that my take out, and especially as we work with yourselves around automation, around certain products, be it everything from, QR codes on creative to interactive ads to dynamic ads, that all of those performance-based areas combined with obviously the branding element is that you can fulfill sort of every aspect of the marketing funnel with a Total TV campaign. And you can buy that through automation and effectiveness and measure it. Or you can, buy that through sponsorships and all of those different areas. And I think that's the sweet spot there of working with clients to understand how that works. And certainly working with clients to understand what their specific needs and how we deliver that, be that through partnering with yourself or a content-based solution.
Good stuff. I'm just going to wrap things up by asking each of you a question, really, which is essentially around, if you were to speak with a brand who was just looking to embark on BVOD, very early days, particularly in 2023, where there is some level of, economic uncertainty, what would be your main recommendation, Danny?
I'm probably going to go with the audience angle in terms of if you're thinking of the demographics that you're trying to reach for your brand, that linear is going to, I'm not going to say which demographics, I'm not going to go down that avenue right now, but you've got linear that can reach certain audiences, but then if you're not including that BVOD piece into it, you're potentially losing out on that other audience that you're trying to reach in there as well. So about thinking, again, that total TV piece of to a consumer sitting in their living room, if we use that example, they may just be using like a connected TV as the way of being able to access it. I know that in my bedroom I don't have an aerial connection point, so if I want to watch anything, it is going to be technically classified as a connected TV and it's BVOD viewing, but I'm actually still wanting to watch a program at 7 p.m. I'm just using a different way of reaching it. So I think that part is important, to not think of it as completely separate, but how does it complement your overall TV buying already in there?
Beautiful. Jason?
I would urge them to look at their own consumption habits. There's a great example right there. And then I'd sort of also urge them to look at what's happened in the last 5 to 6 years in that marketplace and the enormous growth, the terrific product development that's gone through it and all the functionality that gets to a point that says, if you're finally at the point of wanting to test this, then get in and test it. Mm-hmm. There's no need to be just putting a toe in the water. I think they can go into those formats with full confidence, with their own consumption, what's happened in the marketplace and growth, and get in there and really give it a good go.
Great stuff. Nick?
Look, I think I've said it in terms of, Total TV. You need to start with Total TV. 85% of the population, viewed free-to-air on some device last month. You start there, you've got the full funnel approach, utilising the best aspects of all. Again, the warning is you need to be very clear on what you want to achieve. And then, you're advertising in with the most proven and effective media in the country, bar none. My only caveat to that was, the shameless plug. You need to supplement it with sort of 9 publishing and 9 radio, and then you've hit the sweet spot, and I've hit all my budgets.
Oh my God, that was absolutely shameless. Well, thank you very much. So quick summary, we do know that there is some financial uncertainty at the moment. We're all very aware of that. It doesn't mean that we have to stop spending money. There is an opportunity to continue communicating well with very broad audiences and benefiting from the beauty of television. Total TV does exist. You only have to look at your own behaviour to understand that and recognise that consumers are leading the way. It's just television. And it's a really great opportunity to continue testing and learning. And if we all do that and keep getting stuck in, then hopefully Guy's chart that we saw right at the beginning, we will actually start to see BVOD going at a more pronounced angle and potentially even crossing linear TV at some point in the near future. Thank you very much, everybody on the panel. Thanks, guys.